Hello, I'm Darla Williams. I'm an Intuitive Transformational Life Coach, the host of Bridging the Gap to Connections, and I'm an author and illustrator. As an artist and author and illustrator of two children's books, Casey's Adventure and Sammy's Wish, first I want to say thank you, Carol, for allowing me the opportunity to share my books with your audience. Truly, I actually appreciate this opportunity greatly. First off, let me tell you about Casey's Adventure and a little backstory. How did Casey's Adventure begin? Casey's Adventure, and I'll show you the book. Casey's Adventure is about a caterpillar. It's the sights he sees, the sounds he hears, and the friends he makes along the way. So a little bit here. It says one day he decides he's ready for an adventure and climbs down to explore the forest floor. Along the way, he encounters many different animals and insects. One morning, a strange sound wakes him up. He's so curious about it that he sets off even further out to find out what it might be. What he finds is a bigger surprise than anything he could have imagined. Casey's Adventure is a tale of exciting new experiences, sights, sounds, and friendship. Join Casey on his adventure and see if you can guess what strange sounds might be. So that is Casey's Adventure. But let me tell you about that. Casey's Adventure started, and I have to say, in 2012, I had written a story. 2012, I had come out of a situation where I was doing some art for another company. And in that, I had to quit that said job in terms to, they weren't doing things as ethical as I would stand upon. So I chose to tell them, I'm sorry, I can no longer continue. And I ended that contract with that company. However, I was sitting on my porch that day and I was strumming on a guitar, just listening to the humming, and I was humming along because sometimes a little bit of sound therapy helps me along. Well, long story short, when I was sitting there and I was playing with that guitar and I was listening and I was singing and humming along, I saw this little caterpillar. And this is where the story began. Literally, I saw this caterpillar munching along on a leaf, and then I watched it climb down the stem, then out of the pot and down onto the porch and down onto the ground, and I could see it going towards a tree. Okay, so I was sitting there obviously watching it for quite some time. Caterpillar takes some time as it moves along. But in that process of watching that caterpillar, the story Casey's Adventure began. I literally got up off that porch. I put the guitar away. I grabbed a notebook and I began to writing out this story. And as each day for a couple days, I sat with it every day, sitting out there on that porch with that notebook, writing this story until it was complete. And then what else could I do? I wanted to go share it, right? With anything that we choose to complete, we want to share it. Well, instead of running out there and sharing it with the world, thinking I needed to do something with it, then I wasn't even close to understanding that was where I was going with this at all. It was just something I could share with the kids in my family. And I thought, how fun. At least I used my creative juices for something fun. And I went over and I shared this with my sister's kids. And my son had been grown. I've always told little stories at bedtime for him as well, or read books and things like that for years and years. But my son was grown, and now I was sitting with a story that needed to be shared. So I went over and I shared it with my sister's kids. Jaden, being her oldest, absolutely loved the story. But the other kids loved it too. And for year after year, I spent years sharing it with them every time they gathered at my house, if it was for holidays, times that they stayed with me, or whatever the situation might have been. The kids were always around and they were always listening to the story. I always had story time. I feel that story time is really important. It creates the ability for us to use our imagination. So one year in 2016, 2017. It was the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. My nephew finally says, Aunt Darla, us kids, we like pictures. Where are our pictures? So, long story short, I began drawing up some images and stuff, and I figured out, well, let me show him. I am an artist. I love to paint, I love to draw, I love to create stuff. So, as an artist, I began creating these images, and I started with the cover. And it was just this top part, until I expanded it and figured out that I needed to put it and create the lettering and everything where I was going to put in the font. But this was the picture. I started with that, and then I started writing, drawing up each one because I am an illustrator. I didn't realize at the time I was an illustrator. I was becoming one. And I was drawing all these pictures. I found little intricate times of my day where I could actually sit down and draw these pictures and color them. Writing and creating and drawing and painting are my outlet. Those were my therapies for myself. And they have always been. And as each year goes by, my art just gets better. Practice does take you a long ways when it comes to creating the arts. So the backstory is because my nephew, Jaden, had said to me, Aunt Darla, we need pictures. I began formulating the whole series of illustrations that would begin to create Casey's adventure. Once I had it all together, I put it into print, but Jaden and Malachi, just before, I allowed the kids to be the ones who looked it over. Really our target when we're writing children's books is children, right? Their opinion matters. If they had said, oh, that's a boring book, but I probably shouldn't have gone forward with it, right? But if they were so intrigued, I'll never forget the moment that Jaden actually said to me, Aunt Darla, that's a real book. After him and his brother Malachi, I had written the story, had it on pages of papers, and he was running through the story while his brother was flipping through drawings that I had done. And I was telling him where to turn the page, which part was to turn. And by the time they were done reading the manuscript, flipping through the pictures, Jaden actually turned to me at 11 years old and he said, Aunt Darla, wow, that's a real book. How do I get that book? I want to hold that book. I want to read that book. I want to see this as a book. Now here I am with just loose leaf pages stapled together, where he's reading through a manuscript that's handwritten, and the other one's flipping through a whole bunch of pictures that are drawn in a stack of papers where I use colored pencils to draw all of the illustrations. This child is looking at it going, wow, this is a real book. I read books every day. I didn't know what I was about to embark on, but I knew it wasn't so much for myself, but I knew I needed to proceed and pursue the investment in myself and find the way to begin finding the solutions to putting this book to print. So in 2017, I began the journey. By February 2018, Casey's Adventure came out, which later came to be Sammy's Wish. Sammy's Wish is a continuous of this book. So all the sights he sees, the sounds he hears, and the friends he makes along the way, obviously the friend is who? We have Sammy, Sammy's Wish. So here we have Sammy over here on this side. And who is he? He's a little banjo playing snail. So Casey finds a banjo playing snail out in the forest, right? At the forest bottom, playing his banjo. Well, what does Sammy's wish have to do? What is he doing? Sammy, who has a wish, with a little help from Sammy's friend Casey, the two set out on a new adventure. Along the way, they find others who play music too, join them in building new friendships, creating new sounds, and learning teamwork as they also learn how to make Sammy's wish come true. So you want to get in and check these two books out. They're really great stories. The illustrations are absolutely beautiful, allowing the kids to really feel as if they're connecting with the characters, seeing the instruments and the music come to life. You know, when I did Casey's Adventure, it was about the sights, the sounds, the sights they see, the sounds he hears, and the friends he makes along on the way. While the second book, both books can stand alone, but they are actually the first two out of a trilogy, and I am in the middle of making the third book. So I want to continue to follow along to see what comes up in the third story. But just dropping that little bit of tidbit so that you know there is a third one in motion right now. I have the manuscript done, working on the illustrations, but Casey's Adventure already complete on Amazon and also listed to on 40,000 online bookstores world round. So whatever your favorite bookstore is, if you put in books by Darla R Williams and you put in or Casey's Adventure by Darla R Williams, what you're going to find is the book, no matter what bookstore you choose to use, as well as Sammy's Wish is the same thing, listed to over 40,000 online book channels around the world. So you can pick it up anywhere, you know, online. I also have it in walmart.com. Is another option that you can do as well, and have quick delivery straight to the house, print on demand, and all kinds of other options as well. So the third book is on its way. And I'm not going to go into much detail, but like I said, the first book is about the sights he sees, the sounds he hears, and the friends he makes along the way, while the other book is about teamwork, collaboration, and understanding how to build friendship and get into the music and learning teamwork. So both the books really have a great model with them and truly have extraordinary. One of the things for me, and I have to say, when I was a child, one of the things that made me absolutely frustrated when I looked at a book was I didn't have much on the illustrations, right? There wasn't a good, for me, I'd find books and pictures were half done. They'd have a scrolling piece that went off the page. It didn't seem complete. And I knew that if I, as a child, didn't see a completed piece of art, that maybe, just maybe there were other kids out in the world that felt the same way I did. So I wanted to make sure that children not only received a great story, but that the book itself was a series of illustrations that give them a real story from the pictures themselves. So even if they're not quite ready to read on their own, there's a great storyline that they can follow just from each picture, because each picture is fully complete. So that's a little bit about Darla Williams here and the books that I'm writing. Casey's Adventure, Sammy's Wish can all be found on Amazon.com, as well as any online bookstore that you are interested in picking up books from. I hope that you love the titles and would love feedback. If there's any way that you can get in touch with me and let me know. I would love to know the stories of how my books touched your lives, because initially this was a story for my family that my family told me that they could see. And I found the resources and the way to put it into print to help others to see and hear and enjoy the stories as well. So from my heart and my family, these stories are here for yours as well. Thank you. I'm Darla Williams. Bye for now.